Grace to you and peace on this Maundy Thursday night. We have heard this story before, many, many times. We know how it goes, we know the lines, we know the characters, we know how it ends. We know this story. We've heard it many times. But now we are living this story. This is no longer a then story, it is a now story. It is no longer their story, it is our story. We are living the Passion story. A commentator said last week to those who are preaching this Holy Week, he said, I think that perhaps you shouldn't talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. People are tired of hearing about it. I couldn't disagree more. I believe this pandemic is an opening into spiritual practice like no other. This is our Passion story. And the power for me this Holy Week in this story is how Jesus loves. In the midst of fear, rejection, loneliness, betrayal, suffering, dying, and death. Jesus is a teacher for our times. I believe Jesus' way of love is the learning for our time. And this pandemic gives us the opening to learn it, to the way of love. What does this way of love show us? What does it teach us? How can we follow? Because, of course, follow is the operative word. Jesus never said, worship me. Jesus said, follow me. Our presiding bishop got it right a few years ago when he said, we are called to follow the way of love. What does the way of love look like? It is right here, this night, this Maundy Thursday. It's all over these texts. The very name Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, which means mandate, which translates to commandment. Jesus says, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. By this, people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And we all know that Jesus isn't talking about romantic love. Jesus is talking about love in action. It is like the show tune. Don't talk of love, show me. For Jesus, love is not a feeling. Love is, more importantly, an intention and a practice, especially when the going gets tough. In John's Gospel, Jesus demonstrates this love in action by taking off a towel and getting on his knees and washing the feet of his disciples. Only a hired servant would have done that. Only a hired servant would have washed the feet of those better off. But Jesus gets on his knees and washes the feet of his disciples. This is a loving action. And he says to the disciples, I have set you an example that you should go and do likewise. You and I are seeing love in action everywhere these days. In hospitals, nurses' aides, social workers, respiratory therapists, people who clean rooms, people who cook meals, hospital chaplains, all of them are sacrificing their very lives to serve others. This is love in action. On streets, EMTs and firefighters and police officers are serving others. This is love in action. Food pantries are collecting huge amounts of food for the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who are unemployed, who have lost their jobs because of this pandemic. This is love in action. We are seeing it, all of it, all over our country, all over our world. These loving actions are about sacrifice for sure. People are sacrificing their very lives to care for others. The word sacrifice actually comes from the Latin, which means to make holy. These are holy moments, holy actions. We are seeing them. And we hear about another one tonight, another loving action, another sacrifice. Jesus, at a meal with his friends, takes a piece of bread, breaks it, blesses it, and says to them, "This is my body, given for you." Writer Richard Rohr says, Jesus did not say, "These are my thoughts given for you," or "This is my spirit given for you." Instead, Jesus very daringly says, "This is my body, my full humanity." Rohr says, yes, Jesus' full humanity is given, not his spiritualized divinity. Some of you remember the words from the 1928 prayer book, from the Eucharistic prayer in the 1928 prayer book. The words go like this: "And here we offer and present unto thee, O Lord, ourselves, our souls, our bodies, to be a reasonable, holy, and living sacrifice unto thee." These words are nothing less than our call to sacrificial love in action. But what does the way of love mean for us, for those of us who are sheltered in place these weeks? Perhaps our actions are not quite as heroic, but they are just as important. We have the capacity to reach out technologically. Many of us are on regular Zoom calls and, FaceTime calls, so that we can keep in touch with others. These are acts of love. I know people who are making masks for hospital workers. I know people who are shopping for those who cannot get out at all. I know people who are delivering Easter flowers for those who are sick and shut in. We can see love in action all over our parish family. That little red cupboard that our deacon started many years ago is full to overflowing. Our parish administrator has kept the parish office not only running, but humming. Our minister of music, has shown with all kinds of musical skill and technological skill, so that you and I can worship together virtually. And actually, I think it's really. Our rector, as ever, is a quiet, steady presence of love in action. This is a holy week. This is a holy time. May this love in action bless you, and may it become our practice now and always. Amen.